The last station fell at dawn. A bloom of fire erupted from the lower stratosphere of Earth as Kestrel Station, the final orbital defense platform, buckled under a storm of plasma and kinetic bombardment. The explosion was visible even from the command deck of the ESS Valiant, stationed in low Earth orbit, watching helplessly as the last shield flickered and died. One by one, the lights on the tactical display went dark. Outposts, satellites, drone nests, all gone. Earth was naked now. Admiral Celine Miles stood motionless at the forward viewport, watching the flames lick across the horizon. Her face, carved in stone by years of war and loss, twitched just once, barely enough to register grief. "All stations report," came the clipped voice of Commander Elias Trent, her second in command. "We've lost orbital command entirely. The Zalari have begun descending." There were no cries of despair. No screams or dramatic gasps. Just silence, dead and heavy. "Time to ground incursion," Celine asked. 17 minutes, Elias replied. "Maybe less." The bridge officers stared into their stations like condemned prisoners. Behind them, Earth, blue, battered, beautiful, rotated slowly beneath its conquerors. The war had lasted 11 years. 11 years since the Zalari Dominion and their synthetic allies, the Kothari Swarm, had declared humanity too volatile to be allowed interstellar autonomy. What started with diplomatic isolation turned into trade blockades, escalated to skirmishes, and finally bloomed into total war. The United Colonies fractured under pressure. Mars burned. Titan was cracked open like an egg. The last great human fleet, what remained of it, was now little more than a desperate screen between extinction and inevitability. Celine had fought from the first shot. She'd buried friends, comrades, and even her sister, who died leading the failed defense of Vega Prime. Each loss etched itself into her bones, weight carried forward into every decision she made. But now there were no more decisions. No more lines to hold. No more tricks to play. Just one final option. In a quiet command room beneath the Valiant's bridge, Celine stood alone before a terminal sealed by 23 biometric locks. The lights dimmed. A retinal scan passed. Her fingerprint, pulse rhythm, and voice print were accepted. The display glowed red. Red Omega Protocol // inactive. / warning. Engaging this protocol may result in total uncontrolled escalation. Authorized use. Extinction scenario only. Activating may violate interstellar articles of genetic warfare. She hesitated, hand hovering over the final switch. She remembered the Academy lectures, half myth and half warning. Ferals, exiled nearly 300 years ago. Genetically engineered human variants designed for adaptive warfare during the expansion wars. They'd been too successful, too hard to control. After the peace accords, they were declared a threat to galactic stability and exiled to the abyssal reach, uncharted space beyond navigation beacons. No contact since. No mercy expected. Elias entered behind her, as if summoned by her thoughts. "You're not really doing this," he said, quiet but not disbelieving. Celine didn't turn. "We're out of options. They're myths. Argument. We told stories about them to scare cadets. They were real enough to frighten the Dominion into silence when they were banished," she said. "And we wrote the treaty. You're talking about summoning nightmares. They were bred to kill and adapt to anything. We couldn't stop them then, and we won't be able to stop them if they turn on us now." She looked over her shoulder. "Then let's make sure they don't turn on us until after we've won." There was a long pause. Then Elias said, "I hope we're not calling something worse than the Dominion." She pressed the final switch. A deep, ancient tone vibrated through the ship as the emergency quantum beacon flared to life. The signal, the final call, was cast into the void. A frequency encrypted, buried, and locked since before Elias was born. Transmitted once. Then again. Then the system powered down irreversibly. The message was simple. To the exiled clans. This is Earth. We are dying. If you remember us, if you still call yourselves human, come. The next hours crawled by. Earth's surface was under full invasion. Massive carrier ships darkened the skies over New York, Nairobi, Tokyo. Resistance fighters fought desperately on the ground, knowing it would buy them minutes at most. The Valiant remained hidden on the dark side of the moon. Nothing could stop what was coming now. Then, just before midnight, something answered. It began with a distortion on the long-range sensors, a gravitational ripple in a place no wormhole should exist. Then 3. Then 7. No signals. No warnings. Just ships. Monsters of black metal and burning red veins tore free from subspace. Vessels shaped like jagged wings and fanged crescents. Living ships, kilometers long, pulsing with energy patterns unlike anything on record. They drifted silently, scanning everything. Orbiting Pluto like wolves on the edge of the pack. Multiple inbound, what the hell? They're not Dominion. Not ours either. Radiation levels are off the charts. They're alive. Those ships are alive. Celine stood, staring at the tactical display. A single transmission cut across every frequency, in a voice that sounded both human and wrong. Too deep, too resonant. This is Kale Vox of the Feral clans. You called us. Who do we kill? On the bridge, the crew exchanged horrified glances. Elias paled. My God. It worked. Celine spoke slowly into the comms. This is Admiral Celine Miles of the Earth Defense Accord. We request immediate military assistance. Earth is under siege. Kale's voice returned with amusement. You're smaller than we remember. You're bigger than I expected, she replied dry. Beat of silence. Then a dozen more ships emerged behind the first wave. And more still. Kale spoke again. We are the bastards of war. We remember Earth. You exiled us for what we were. You feared the future we offered. And I'm calling you back, she said. Because without you, there won't be a future left. Another pause. Then laughter. Unhinged. Not cruel, just free. You always did know when to crawl. We'll play your war. But understand this. When the Dominion is ash, we will talk about your sins. Celine exhaled slowly. Understood. The first feral ships powered up weapon systems, and the stars near Pluto went red. Celine turned to her crew. Broadcast to all resistance cells. Stand by. The monsters we feared are here. But for now, they're ours. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. For nearly 3 centuries they'd been forgotten. Banished to the void beyond mapped stars. Written off as myth. But in the abyssal reach, the ferals had not forgotten. They had waited. The ship was not built. It was grown. The feral dreadnought Bastion slithered through interstellar space. A living organism shaped for war. Its hull pulsed faintly, like a heart beating in vacuum, veins of fire-red plasma coursing through biometallic ridges. Its spines could shear through moons. Its cannon mouths could swallow cities. Inside, the air was thick with warmth and ozone. Organic walls shivered with ambient thought, connected to every crew member via neural links. And at the center of it all stood Kale Vox, warlord of the Clan-Eaters, the most feared among the feral warborn. He held a fist-sized shard of glowing glass, the last echo of the Earth's Red Omega Protocol. They remembered us, Kale murmured. They remembered enough to beg, said Runa, his tactician. Lithe, half-armored, her hair woven with metal filaments. Her voice was cool, precise. Same humans who threw us to the dark, growled a voice from the shadows. Vake, their weapons master. Now they call us home. Kale's eyes gleamed gold. Of course they do. They are losing. They built their civilization on diplomacy and reason. But war doesn't care for reason. It listens only to teeth. The chamber thrummed with quiet approval. Clan leaders, part soldier, part beast, circled him, their bodies enhanced, twisted from the baseline human form in countless divergent directions. Some covered in carapace, others with additional arms, bone spurs, optic clusters. Each a testament to evolution through necessity. They called us monsters, Kale said, raising the shard. But monsters survive. Monsters win. A murmur rippled through the link. Emotion, not speech. Runa tilted her head. And now, will you answer? Kale looked out through the forward viewport, past the swirling lights of folded space, where Sol, the human cradle, shone dim in the distance. Oh yes, he whispered. Let's see what our kin have become. Earth orbit. 7 hours later. Celine stood on the command deck of the Valiant, surrounded by silence. The fleet had seen strange things, but nothing compared to the arrival of the Ferals. 29 dreadforms hung in orbit, vast and alien in every way. They did not respond to standard handshake protocols. Their energy readings were erratic, contradictory. Biotech fused with machine logic. An evolutionary path humanity had abandoned long ago. Then one of them spoke. You ask. Came. Speak. The voice was pure resonance, echoing directly into Celine's mind, bypassing equipment. The transmission wasn't just audio, it was emotional. Cold curiosity. Flickers of old betrayal. And somewhere in there a thrill for war. She stepped forward. This is Admiral Celine Miles of the Earth Defense Accord. On behalf of our species, I welcome you back. Kale's voice returned. You abandoned us. Exiled us to rot beyond the stars. Now you welcome us. I didn't make that decision, Celine said calmly. But you wear their uniform. Fly their colors. We wear them because someone has to survive. Silence. Fair. Another pause. We will descend soon. We will kill your enemies. Not for you. For the thrill. For the right to say we still own war. Do not try to control us. You will fail. Celine gave a faint smile. I don't want to control you. I want to win. For a moment there was something like laughter, raw, guttural. Then you may yet live. The landing was apocalyptic. The Ferals didn't use drop pods. They used themselves. Behemoth warforms launched from orbit like falling meteors, crashing into the Earth's crust with kinetic force that shattered streets and glass towers. They rose from craters, towering creatures of armor, claws, and adaptive flesh. Wherever they struck, Zalari forces disintegrated. The aliens were brilliant tacticians, but they were built for war with order, with predictability. The Ferals were neither. They adapted in seconds. Plasma-resistant skin. Accelerated reaction speed. Sonic pulses to scramble Zalari tactical nets. One squad of Ferals ripped through a battalion in under 4 minutes. Celine watched it unfold from the Valiant's command feed. Jesus, Elias whispered. They're not soldiers. They're apex predators. She didn't disagree. In New Berlin, an outnumbered human resistance cell had been pinned for days, bunkered in underground shelters while orbital bombardments reduced the city to ash. Then the ceiling exploded. Rubble rained down. The soldiers thought they were about to die, until something pulled the roof away, and a towering figure emerged from the smoke. Not Zuri. It was Feral. 10 feet tall, humanoid but grotesque. Black and crimson armor fused to skin, with glowing red eyes and a jagged mouth that opened to laugh, actually laugh, as it fell on the alien invaders with explosive fury. The resistance commander, Lieutenant Ferris, just stared. Who the hell are you? The warform turned to him, grinning with bloody teeth. We're the reason they used to fear you. Then it roared and more descended. Back aboard the Bastion, Kale stood at the war throne, watching kill feeds stream from ground units. Runa approached. Zalari fleets are repositioning. They're confused. We've taken 5 fronts in 2 hours. Kale cracked his neck. They think in lines. We think in spikes. They don't understand chaos. Runa didn't smile, but there was amusement in her tone. You're enjoying this. War is our nature. It's not sport. It's truth. Even when it's for the people who left us to die. Kale stared at the glowing image of Earth. That's why I enjoy it. In orbit, Celine finally arranged for the first in-person meeting. It took place aboard the Valiant. A sterile chamber was hastily sealed and augmented with quarantine protocols. No one knew what Ferals would do in close proximity. They weren't even sure if their biology was still human. Kale Vox arrived with 2 guards. Tall, feral-featured, clad in living armor that rippled like breathing steel. His presence filled the room before he even spoke. Celine rose. "Welcome aboard, Kale." He studied her with golden eyes. "You're small." She folded her arms. "And you're large. Shall we move on?" Smirk. They talked for an hour. Strategy, fleet composition, battlefront coordination. He was sharper than she expected. More philosopher king than bloodthirsty brute. At one point Kale asked, "Why did you call us?" Celine looked him in the eye. "Because we were going to die. And I'd rather live alongside monsters than perish with saints." Kale nodded slowly. "You might not be as weak as your ancestors." She said nothing, but inside something shifted. Later, Elias confronted her in private. "You trust him?" "No." "Then why are we all in on this alliance?" Celine stared out the viewport, watching a feral dreadnought tear apart a Zellery cruiser like paper. "Because we summoned wolves. And now we have to run with the pack." On the edge of the solar system, Dominion ships regrouped. Their leaders, cold, logical, could not explain the sudden losses. Tactical anomalies. Impossible maneuvers. They began simulations. They adapted. Slowly. But the damage was done. The galaxy had shifted. A forgotten branch of humanity had returned. And the rules of war were changing. The war had changed. No, it had evolved. For the Zalari Dominion, masters of clean conquest and cold precision, war had always been mathematics. Threat assessment, risk projection, collapse probability. Their neural war architects calculated 1,000 scenarios and chose the one that required the fewest variables. But there had never been a variable like this. Ferals. They were chaos incarnate. Shape-shifting biology, hive-level tactical adaptation, and a level of aggression that defied analysis. They broke simulation models. Units who survived their first encounter developed combat trauma, a concept foreign to the Dominion mindset. In less than 2 weeks, 23 invasion corridors had been annihilated. Entire Zellery cruisers deserted, driven mad by psychic backwash from feral assault units. Swarm discipline dissolved in the face of enemies who ignored pain and fed on terror. The Dominion High Strategos convened an emergency conclave. The conclusion was chilling. The Terrans have rekindled an ancient abomination. We may not be able to contain it. Earth orbit is valiant. Admiral Celine Miles stood in the observation deck, hands behind her back, watching the storm rage below. Entire continents were lit with fires. But not Dominion fires. Not anymore. Now, feral war clans stalked cities and ruins alike, fighting under loose coordination with the battered remnants of Earth's military. It wasn't a clean alliance. It was an agreement of circumstance. Celine sipped black coffee and reviewed combat logs. One stuck out. Feral unit, Thornpack, penetrated subterranean Zalari base in Greenland and neutralized threat before Allied forces arrived. Estimated kill count: 673. Casualties: 0. She didn't know whether to be grateful or afraid. "Report from UN Ground Command," Elias said behind her. "They're requesting clarification on feral protocol." Apparently Thornpack commandeered an orbital railgun and used it to paint their clan sigil into a mountain range. Celine didn't turn around. "How big?" 17 kilometers wide. "It's visible from low orbit." She sighed. "Tell UN Command to pick their battles. That mountain wasn't doing much else anyway." Elias hesitated. "There's something else." She finally looked at him. "There's chatter. From resistance networks. Civilians too. Rumors that the ferals aren't just fighting the Zalari. They're experimenting, collecting, interfacing with their tech." Celine frowned. "Interfacing how?" "We don't know. But there are reports of feral units harvesting Dominion neural gel and fusing it into their biosystems. Adaptive mutation rates have spiked since. Some units can now replicate Dominion stealth fields. Others are using biophased plasma, technology the Dominion never allowed humans to see. That's not fighting a war, Celine said. That's evolution in motion. Greenland Subterranean Zone, Thornpack Detachment. Feral Scout Vera, a sleek biowarrior with obsidian skin and silver neural tendrils, skittered along the ceiling of a hollowed Zalari base. The walls were still warm from impact. She sniffed the air, analyzing trace chemicals with layered senses. Behind her, a brutish quadruped named Morg carried the remains of a Dominion interface console, half-melted, oozing yellow neural fluid. They met Kale Vox at the base center, where Dominion prisoners hung in stasis. "These ones think they are the pinnacle," Vera said, voice echoing like whispers on glass. "But they are soft, too reliant on logic. No rage, no chaos." Kale studied the prisoners. "They have knowledge we want," he said. "We'll take it." Moore grumbled. "They scream without sound." "I like that." Runa's voice came through over the neural channel. "Command wants to know what you're planning." Kale didn't answer immediately. "Kale," he finally replied. "The Dominion called us broken humans. We are not. We are post-human. We adapt. And now we adapt them." Valiant Tactical Chamber. Runa arrived on the Valiant for an in-person tactical briefing. It was tense. The feral emissary had to be scanned 4 times and quarantined before entering. Standard protocol. Still, no one could look away from her. The elongated limbs. The organic armor. The eyes that shimmered like heat distortion. "This is an asymmetric battlefield," Runa said. "Your models are outdated. Dominion logic assumes uniformity. They cannot predict variance." Celine nodded. "And your variance incarnate. We are the wolves in their machine." Kale's voice cut into the chamber via neural uplink. "We need a strike fleet. Not to destroy, but to capture." Celine raised an eyebrow. "Capture? The Dominion has a subcore node above Io. Tactical cognition relay. We want it. That's deep in their fleet territory. That's where you come in. Us. We distract. You engage the forward line. Force their attention. We drop in. Rip the node out. Leave before they understand what happened." Celine exhaled. It was suicidal. It was also exactly the kind of insane gambit only humans would try. She smiled. "Let's do it." Battle of Io. It began with a decoy push. 3 human cruisers, painted in magnetic stealth paint and fitted with false transponder codes, screamed into Zellary airspace near Jupiter. ECM flooded the sector. Dominion fleet formations shifted, predictably. Then the Valiant broke stealth and opened fire. A dozen Zellary ships turned, engaging. It was a surgical distraction, just enough to commit their defense web. That's when the ferals struck. Kale's bastion emerged from a deep gravitational rift between Ganymede and Io, followed by 7 drop forms and a swarm of microvoid burrowers. The feral fleet didn't fight head-on. It infected, crashing into Dominion ships and hollowing them out with tunneling organisms. Inside the node, Vera and Morg cut through the defenders with ease. The Zellary used AI puppets and liquid soldiers. Neither lasted long. By the time the Dominion realized what was happening, the node was gone, ripped from the station and loaded into a biocyst chamber aboard Bastion. The ferals were gone before retaliation could even start. The Valiant pulled back, scarred but alive. Aftermath. Celine and Kale spoke over a secure link. "You pulled it off," she said. "I told you. Chaos is a scalpel. What's in the node? Patterns. Behavior maps. Dominion emotion emulation models." Celine frowned. "They don't feel emotion." "No," Kale said. "But they mimic it. And if they mimic it, we can manipulate it. You're planning something." He smiled. "Always." Meanwhile, aboard the Zellary Prime ship, High Strategos Zeltun floated in its nutrient pool, surrounded by clouds of processing drones. "Report. Feral hybrid variance exceeds containment thresholds. Human/feral alliance has achieved tactical parity. Extrapolate. The ferals will not stop. Their growth is exponential. Soon they will consume us, or turn on the Terrans. Then we must trigger the failsafe. No failsafe exists. Sun's eyes pulsed. Then we will make one. Valiant bridge. Late at night, Celine stood with Elias in silence. You ever think we made a mistake? He asked. Constantly. You think they'll turn on us? Probably. So why help them evolve? She watched stars blur past the window. Because if they don't evolve, we lose this war. And if they do, maybe they'll remember we were the ones who called them home. Elias shook his head. You gamble on nightmares, Admiral. She smiled faintly. Nightmares are the only things left that scare our enemies. In the final days of the war for Earth, the stars began to go dark, not from weapon fire, but from the sheer scale of the fleets arriving. The Zalari Dominion, humiliated, outmaneuvered and outwitted, had returned, not with strategy but with desperation. It had abandoned its logic-driven protocols. Its simulations had failed to account for the ferals. So it decided to try something terrifying. Emotion. They didn't feel it. But they had learned to fake it. And in doing so, they had made themselves dangerous in a whole new way. Solar orbit. Human feral forward command. Alarms pulsed red across the Valiant's command deck. The system was awash with enemy signals. 600 warships, triple the firepower of anything the Dominion had used before. But more disturbing than the size was the way they moved. Erratic, aggressive, logical. Celine stood still, lips tight, watching Dominion formations zigzag, split apart, and regroup with reckless abandon. They no longer moved like machines. They're mimicking us, Elias said, breathless. No, Celine replied. They're mimicking them. Behind her, a feral envoy stirred. Runa, Kale's second in command. Her eyes aglow with flickering data streams. They've taken our chaos, Runa murmured, and dressed it in bone and steel. Flashpoint. Mars orbital siege. The battle began with a frontal assault, but the Dominion had never used one before. They sacrificed dozens of ships, deliberately to draw attention. And when the Allied forces responded, the trap closed. Hidden in the shadow of Phobos, a new weapon awoke. A planet-breaker-class destroyer, longer than most cities, fused with captured feral biotech, was unleashed. Its spine pulsed with unstable matter. Its mouth unhinged like a predator. They took one of ours, Kale snarled, and made it into this abomination. Celine nodded. Then it's ours to destroy. But even Kale looked unsure. The turning point, Earth under siege. While the Mars offensive raged, the Dominion bypassed the main fleet, slipping elite strike units past Earth's weakened orbital defenses. These were not standard infantry. They were gene-hacked infiltrators, spliced with stolen feral tissue, able to shapeshift, mimic neural signals, and hijack networks. Suddenly, Earth's defense grid turned against itself. Cities blacked out. Defense satellites went rogue. Entire battalions reported friendly fire initiated by hacked units wearing human faces. They're not fighting us anymore, Elias whispered. They're becoming us. Worse, human resistance networks began fracturing under paranoia. No one could trust anyone. Was the person beside you a soldier? Or something wearing their skin? The dilemma. Doomsday within reach. In orbit, the Bastion floated near Earth, bleeding from several new wounds. Kale paced in his war chamber, fury coiling through his veins. They used our own flesh against us, he spat. Runa nodded. They are adapting too fast. We infected the machine. And now the machine has become disease. Celine's face appeared via hologram. We have one shot left. She laid out Project Pale Fire, a last resort system buried beneath Antarctica. A planet-wide EMP cannon, powerful enough to knock out every Dominion and feral system within Earth's gravity well. Kale's golden eyes narrowed. That includes us. Yes, she said. It resets everything. Collateral. Massive. Survival. Celine didn't answer. The conflict. Human versus feral. That night, Celine met Kale in person on neutral ground. The burned-out husk of a UN World Assembly dome in Geneva. Shattered glass. Statues of peace crumbling under fire. You want to cripple everyone, Kale said. You said it yourself. The Dominion is becoming us. And you're becoming them. The lines are gone. Kale growled. We didn't ask to evolve. No, she replied. But you are. And if you adapt too far, there'll be nothing left of humanity at all. He turned his back. We were made to survive, Admiral. You asked for monsters. Don't cry when they stop pretending to be men. She stepped forward. I'm not crying. I'm choosing. He spun. To destroy us. To reset the board. You'll survive. You always do. But we're not trading one oppressor for another. Kale was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, he handed her a shard of his own neural core. Activate your weapon, he said. She blinked. What? But let me choose who stays behind to fight while the rest fall. Give us a final war, and we'll earn our place again. Final gambit. Operation Pale Fire. The battle was epic. In Antarctica, human and feral forces stood together around the Pale Fire core as Dominion drop pods rained from the sky. Feral berserkers tore through invaders while Earthborn Marines covered flanks. Old grudges evaporated in the snow as blood froze on ice. In orbit, Kale boarded the Planet Breaker ship alone. Suicide mission. He infiltrated through biotunnels. Feral tissue grown backwards, corrupted by Zalari programming. The ship screamed at him, remembering his DNA. And hating him for it. He reached the heart of the beast, a throne of stitched nerve cords, pulsing with stolen feral code. He injected the shard. The ship howled. Lights went dark. He sat in the command throne, neural fire ripping through his brain, and smiled. You learned our chaos, Kale whispered. Now learn our sacrifice. He turned the ship toward Jupiter and engaged its core engine. The blast was visible from Earth. Pale fire ignites. With the planet breaker gone, Celine gave the order. Pale fire charged, pulling energy from Earth's magnetic field, solar wind, and every capacitor on the planet. The pulse hit like a god's heartbeat. The sky turned white. Orbit went silent. Every satellite died. Feral warforms collapsed mid-scream. Dominion infiltrators disintegrated. Every neural link burned out. The Earth went dark. Then the sun rose. Aftermath. Took weeks to rebuild even basic systems. But the Zalari had fled. Their final play failed. And with their biocode scrambled, they had no way to rebuild their feral clone hybrids. The ferals were reduced, injured, scattered, humbled. Some died. Some disappeared into the wilds of Earth. But those who remained began to change. Not into monsters, but something else. Epilogue. Celine stood at Kale's grave, high on the Andes ridge, marked only by a twisted fragment of the planet breaker's hull. He died a human death, Runa said beside her. Celine nodded. Because he chose to. And us. You get to choose what comes next. Runa looked toward the horizon. Not war. Not unless you make it. Behind them, human children ran with hybrid dogs, descendants of feral war beasts, now companions. The Earth had healed, scarred but alive. They called us to save them, Kale's voice echoed from an old recording. Not because we were noble, not because we were good, but because when everything else failed, we were still the most dangerous thing the stars had ever seen. He paused. And maybe that's something worth surviving for.